You're welcome to literature class today. Today we are going to consider the topic themes that commonly dominate the book She Stoops to Conquer by Oliver Goldsmith. One of the themes that dominates the book She Stoops to Conquer is class and class bias. And if you read the story very well, you will understand that the decisions the characters make and their perspectives on one another are all largely based on what class they are. For instance, where Tony openly loves low-class people like the drunks in the Three Pigeons Ale House, young Marlowe hid his love of low-class women from his father and the society. Secondly, Marlowe's and Hastings' reaction to Hardcastle is also an example of the importance of class. They find him impudent because they believe him to be of low class. That's why they talk to him anyhow, ordered him around anyhow, thinking that he is a barman and not the owner of that house. Class bias manifests in the way some of the characters respond to situations and one another. For instance, until Kate teaches a young Marlowe a lesson, if not, he responds to women solidly on the basis of their status in the society or their class. He looks down on women of the lower class, but he is very at ease around them. And then on the other side, he esteems women of the upper class, but he is very shy around them. More so, Mrs. Hardcastle assesses a person by the value of his or her possessions. Another theme is class, power, and social status. And if you read the play very well, you will discover that this theme, that is class, power, and social status, can be examined by comparatively looking at men versus women, parents versus children, rich versus poor, young versus old. So in the play, Goldsmith makes us laugh at the way men and women, fathers, mothers, lovers, young and old, rich and poor behave in the play. More so, we have to consider the relationship between Kate and her father, Tony and his mother. That of Kate and her father is cordial because Kate is always answerable to her father and she always adheres to his instruction. For instance, when he ordered her to dress in her own way in the morning to welcome visitors, but in the evening she has to dress plainly to suit him, and she obeyed him. But in the case of Tony Lumpkin and his mother, Mrs. Hardcastle or Dorothy, their own relationship is not that cordial because of the upbringing she gave him. So he finds it very difficult to adhere to her instruction. Furthermore, we need to consider the powerlessness of women and their subsequent need for men with money. So we're still talking about class, power, and social status. So when you read this play very well, you will discover that the men dominate the women. That's why the young ladies don't have the right to choose a husband of their choice. Their parents have to come in. And apart from that, you also consider their subsequent need for men with money. That's why Kate has to stoop low to see that she conquers Marlowe because of his class and because of his wealth. And apart from that, you have to consider why Mrs. Hardcastle feels the need to keep all of the jewels. It's because of class and because she knew that if she would allow Constance to marry outside the family, the jewels or the fortune will not remain in the family. but because of class and because of quest for wealth, she has to force Constance to marry Tony Lumpkin in order to keep the fortune within the family. Another prevailing theme in this play is love has no regard for social boundaries. Talking about this theme, although prevailing attitude among England's elite classes frown at romance between higher class and lower class, but Marlowe cannot help falling in love with a common barmaid who is Kate in disguise, and Tony associates with lower class too in the Three Pigeon Ale House, where it is not supposed to be, because the higher class are supposed to associate with themselves, and then the lower class too also associate with themselves. But looking at this, some characters find it difficult to keep to that law. That is why Marlowe could not help himself falling in love with Kate, and then Tony is always in the ale house associating with the lower class people. Hope for flawed humanity is another theme that dominates this play. Kate has enough common sense to see through the London arrogance encasing young Marlowe, but you understand that although Marlowe makes a fool of himself as a result of his upper class biases, but Kate has enough common sense to see through the London arrogance encasing him and to appreciate him for his good qualities. So had it been she didn't pretend like that, she wouldn't have known more about young Marlowe. And apart from that, Mrs. Hardcastle, in spite of her misguided values, also enjoys the love of her husband, and that is Mr. Hardcastle. And he too is willing to look beyond her foibles in favor of her good points. So these characters did not allow the weak point of their fellows to weigh them, but they also consider the good sides of each of these characters. Another theme is deceit and trickery. Most of the play's comedy comes from the trickery played by various characters. For instance, the most important deceit came from Tony and his lie about Mr. Hardcastle's house and his scheme of driving his mother and Constance around in cycles. So when you look at the way he behaved, he misled them to Mr. Hardcastle's house as an inn, and that made them to misbehave or to behave the way they did. And apart from that, when Mrs. Hardcastle asked him to escape with Constance to Aunt Pettigrew, he decided to trick them by driving them round Mr. Hardcastle's house. And at the end, they realized that it was a trick. And some few characters were duped into seeing characters in different ways, most especially Hastings and young Marlowe. So because they were duped, they were misled. So on arriving Mr. Hardcastle's house, they see characters in different ways. For instance, they see Mr. Hardcastle as the barman and Kate as barmaid, and they believe that Mr. Hardcastle's house was an inn, which is not true, but the physical appearance of the house deceived them too. And apart from this, Kate assumes the role of a barmaid. This one too is trick. She has to deceive young Marlowe in order to win his love, because she's made to understand, or she realized his weak point, that he's not free around high-class ladies. So she has to stoop low in order to win his love, of which she did. Another theme is money. One of the factors that keeps the play pragmatic is the unavoidable importance of money. you will discover that in the play, high class go for high class lovers and low class go for low class lovers, simply because the high class cannot afford to marry someone that is poor. And it can also, the love of money can also be seen in characters like Constance, who cannot run away or elope with her lover, that is Hastings, because of money. She finds it difficult to let go of her wealth, that is the jewels that is at the custody of Mrs. Hardcastle. And apart from that, Kate also falls in love with young Marlowe simply because of his class and his wealth. And young Marlowe finds it difficult to propose to Kate because of her lack of money. So he believes even if you marry her, there will be no dowry because she's from the lower class. And at the end, his love for her cannot be withstood. That's why he has to propose to her even as a barmaid. And another character that is seriously in love of money is Mrs. Hardcastle, who finds it very difficult to allow Constance to marry outside the family simply because she wants to keep the fortune at her custody within the family. That's why she forced her to be in love with her son Tony Lumpkin, so that the fortune will still remain in the family, that they will be more richer than the way they were. Lastly, money breeds indolence. So this theme can be seen in the character of Tony Lumpkin, who will get £1,500 a year when he comes of age. And because of that, he finds it difficult to make himself useful. And he devotes himself to ale house and a do-nothing life, because he knew that even if he will not marry Constance, he will still have money that can keep him for the whole year. And apart from these themes that I've made mention, there are other themes. We have other themes that dominate the play, and I cannot have time to explain them. But with this, you may be asked to explain any of the themes given. So it's good you should know most of these themes, so that when you are asked to explain, you know how to explain each of the theme, and you explain it point by point in a paragraph in a way that the examiner will understand. So have a good day.